Welcome to Edspiration, providing practical tools, strategies, stories, and resources to create places where everyone loves to work and everyone loves to learn. Thank you for tuning in to Edspiration today. This is your host, John Linney. And I want to thank you for listening and being part of this growing Edspiration community. I also want to thank Marsh. Marsh left a kind review of our show on iTunes. And Marsh wrote saying that Edspiration is a collection of brilliant, inspired educators, and that he looks forward each week to getting useful, cutting-edge, and effective practices, all rooted in love for young people and learning. John Linney has put together an outstanding network of educators. Thank you, Marsh, for those kind words. I really appreciate hearing that. It's so nice to get feedback. Thank you so much for that kind review. If you'd like to leave a review as well, you can do that on iTunes. If you just go to Edspiration.org, you can see a link to iTunes and click there and just leave a review. We'd love to hear some feedback from you. We also want to thank you for sharing this show with others. We wouldn't have listeners in over 43 countries around the world if it wasn't for you and our great guests. We're taking some time today for a special episode to take a break from interviewing some great educators, as we've done for the last 40-some shows around the world. And we have a new season coming upon us, and we're taking some breaks in our school years around the world. Some people are taking winter breaks, some people are taking spring breaks, and every year about this time in Canada, I know schools take a winter break. The last couple of years, I met up with students from St. Mary's University in Canada to do some piecework with some elementary, middle, and high school students even in Northern Ireland. Last year, I met with students from different soccer clubs around Belfast to do peace building and to teach conflict resolution strategies to adolescents. That was a great experience for me. I also visited elementary students teaching peace building skills, social skills to teach them how to de-escalate conflicts and reduce social exclusion and mistreatment in their schools and in their neighborhoods. And many of us are very much aware of the challenges and the troubles that occurred in Northern Ireland for many years. I really enjoyed working with those students to teach them those skills. I cannot wait to go back. I have a few pictures of this trip posted on our Facebook page, and there's a link to our Facebook page. If you haven't seen it, if you go to schoolclimateinstitute.org, you'll see a link to our Facebook page and other ways I can support you. And on the schoolclimateinstitute.org website, you will see ways you can connect with me, whether that's through Twitter or Facebook, and also how I might support you in an upcoming conference you might be hosting, or maybe through staff development, through some practical training to improve your school climate, motivating staff, students, many other ways we can support you at your school, all at schoolclimateinstitute.org. With spring break occurring around the Northern Hemisphere, and with season changing around the Northern Hemisphere with more green, more daylight, more sun as we transition into warmer months, I also know many of you are listening in Australia, where your days and your weather are shifting too, but in a different way. So this is a season of breaks and change for many educators around the world. There's a famous outdoor activity store we have in our area called REI, and it's got camping supplies and climbing supplies and other outdoor activities. Some people refresh and re-energize that way by going to the outdoors. And I have a suggestion for REI, but a different way to use REI in our break times as educators. So I think about REI as recuperate, educate, and invigorate. And my first item is in recuperate. When I think about the time we have as educators to recuperate, that is to relax, to take some real time away. Some people do that. I know some of my friends do it through exercise or hiking. I know some other friends of mine do it through meditation or practicing mindfulness to catch up on sometimes doing nothing. Maybe that's reading some books or addressing your space around you through gardening or watching videos or binge watching movies. Yes, I know some people binge watch, different TV shows and different movies that you want to catch up on yourselves. It's really important that we as educators take time to refresh, to get more rest, take that walk we need. Today, for example, I'm going to go to a museum in my own hometown, which many people have talked about, and I can't believe I haven't been there. It's been open for at least 10 years. There's so much going on around us. I know that we may not feel like we have time to tap into as educators, or we overlook simply because we live there. Recently, I did a training in San Diego, and I met the assistant principal at this school afterwards, and we went to have dinner together. And I remember we were having dinner by the water. This is one of my favorite places to go. It's just to go eat and sit by the water and soak that in. And maybe that's because I live in a desert. I don't see that much, but I really love that scenery. And he commented to me during dinner, I won't forget this. He says, I live here, and I've lived here for over a dozen years. And so many people come to this town to see the water, to see the beauty of the area, to take advantage of it. And he says, I can't remember the last time I came down here with my family. He says, we don't really take advantage of this the way we should. And I really appreciated when him saying that, because it had me reflect on my own community. And do I take advantage of the things in my own town, in my own neighborhoods, so that I can absorb the beauty and the lessons that are around me? That some people just come to visit. Some people come as tourists to travel to the area, and they come take advantage of these things, but I don't in my own backyard. So think about those things. What are some ways that you might be able to recuperate from or refresh with in your own neighborhood, in your own town? Maybe you want to just take time in your own home, take a mindful minute, learn more about mindful breathing, or whether that's through maybe spirituality or other ways you might recuperate. I'd like to learn how you do that. I also want to share the E part, and that is to educate. And when I think about educate, I mean educate myself to learn new skills, maybe attending a conference or connecting with like minds, different minds, perhaps. For me, I like to go to a local bookstore. I find so much inspiration there myself. I walk in and I know all this information is available on the internet. I know I can find this by ordering it online, but there's something special to me about walking into a bookstore or a library and seeing the volumes of words and all this knowledge collected in all these books. To me, it's inspirational knowing that it's all there, that there's really nothing that we really can't learn about. There's all these resources to find inspiration and ideas in. And it's just walking around the aisles and just picking up different books. For me, I find that inspiring and invigorating for myself. I'll grab a cup of coffee and just sit there and just go through several books for a couple of hours just to re-energize and get new ideas. There's something amazing about being in the presence of all that knowledge and seeing it firsthand for me that I just really enjoy and find fueling. And maybe you just want to shut down your educator brain yourself. Maybe you just want to learn something completely different. Maybe it doesn't have to do with education. Maybe it's just something a skill you want to learn, or something you want to learn more about, whether that's history or art or something else that just educates and invigorates a part of you. And I know that that's something that we can do through YouTube and through videos, and that's fine too. Sometimes we learn just perusing through those things. Taking some time to breathe and just relax and knowing that, hey, it's all fun. So enjoying yourself in that process, which really gets me to that third part of the REI, which is invigorating, reinvigorating yourself, polishing yourself. Maybe it has to do with refining or clearing away. It could be organizing, getting rid of old things that are stacks of papers that have been there for months or weeks just to get rid of and throw out. If you haven't used an article of clothing, or maybe it's something that you've seen in your closet for a year or two and you haven't tapped into, maybe it's an opportunity to clear those things away, to create your own space. Sometimes clearing out allows us to bring new things in, whether that's new artwork or new space, color on a wall. Think about the differences and the way young people learn, how they learn, what tools they use, the knowledge they can gain access to in seconds. So think about how they can get access to those things in seconds, and we can do the same. We can invigorate our space with art or painting a room. We had a guest, Owen Linehan, who suggested we paint a part of our wall in an office or space in a dry erase board or chalkboard to get things out on a wall, to draw and be creative. Maybe it's bringing in a new color into a space that we've had the same old color in. I know that my daughter had an art exhibit recently, and I'm very proud of her because she created her very first piece of artwork through painting. And so she's drawn and done other artwork for years, but this was her very first painting, and she was showcased in our school district art showcase, and she got the award for Best of Show, and she was proud, and I was proud. And one of the things that I saw in that space was all this artwork of students, the creativity that students had, and I just thought if I was a teacher in a classroom space, I would really want to have some of these in my classroom, because I think that it would validate the students, but it would bring in new perspectives and new thoughts for me as I had new art around me and new things to look at, a new vibrant energy in my space. So I ask you to think about what are some ways that you might want to do that as you go into this break. How can you invigorate your space? How can you maybe bring in new ideas, new color, new perspectives into a space that maybe you've worked in for years? I know that there's that saying that we don't want to teach the same thing 25 times, even though we're teaching for 25 years. Think about the space that's around you, and are you in that same space the last 10, 5 years? Does it still look the same? How can you reinvigorate that? So I'd like to know, how are you recuperating? How are you energizing yourself? How are you reinvigorating yourself? And share that with people. I'd like us to share that with each other through Edspiration. And you can do that through a hashtag on Twitter, through hashtag Edspiration. You can also email me at edspirationpodcast@gmail.com or tweet me at schoolclimates with my address on Twitter at schoolclimates. Let us know how you're recuperating and energizing and invigorating. How are you doing that, educating yourselves? Let's share that with each other in this growing Edspiration community, because we really deserve to take that time for ourselves. It's really one of the few ways we can refuel so we can continue to fuel other people. I had a friend of mine who was sitting with me over coffee one time, and he was giving me great advice, great tips, and he often did. And I just told him, man, you give me some great ideas, and I want to thank you for your great feedback and your suggestions. It's just, it's so fun to hang out with a person who's always giving those things. And he said, there's a saying that he says, I don't often take my own advice. He says, I like to share this saying. He says, take my advice. I'm not using it anyway. Well, I'm going to try and take my own advice. I want to make sure I'm using this. I know I'm guilty of the same thing, sharing advice and tips, but not taking it in myself. So let's take our own advice. Let's not just give it away and not use it. Let's just tap it. And I want to thank you for doing that. Thank you also to my show's producer, Nick Jaworski. He's at podcastmonster.com. And if you've enjoyed this show, please share it with others. Find out from them how they're getting their REI during their break time. Share it with us. It's so important to take time for yourself to do the amazing work you do for young people, for your colleagues, and for the future of our planet together. And I look forward to next time having a great educator interview on our show and hearing their wisdom and taking their advice. And I look forward to doing that on our next show when we return to sharing more Edspiration with you next time.